Good afternoon. I'm Chief Jim Kleiman of Kewaunee City Police Department. I'm here along with Superintendent of Kewaunee Public Schools, Treml, and also Sheriff Matt Joski from the Kewaunee County Sheriff's Department. Today we had an incident at Kewaunee School District on January 21st at approximately 10:23 a.m. City Kewaunee Police Department received information from the Kewaunee District that they had received involving a threat to the school. While the target of the threat was not specific, all area schools were advised of the threat and asked to take precautionary action. At this time, law enforcement is working with the Kewaunee School District to confirm the source of the threat and to follow up accordingly. Below is the public release from the Kewaunee School District. The Kewaunee School District is currently in lockdown due to an outside threat mentioning a firearm. Due to the lockdown, no one is able to enter or leave the building at this time. We ask that our community stay clear of the facility as we work to secure our campus. All students and staff are safe within the facility. And this incident remains under investigation. So, questions. Questions for me, questions for Mr. Treml or Sheriff Joski.
How was the threat received via phone?
The threat was received over the phone to the high school office.
So anybody that's been going over there right now can see you guys are pulling kids out. How are you doing that safely?
Okay, so there are officers on scene, and well, maybe you can go over that.
Sure. So we went into a lockdown. We locked down our school facility after conferring with local action was to get kids home and reunited with their families as soon as we believed it was safe. After talking with local law enforcement, we put together a plan where we would first release our busing students. And then after that, we did release a message to our parents, and at this time, we are releasing students to their parents. They are pulling into a checkpoint, they're showing us their ID, they're pulling up to, it's in our bus loading zone, which is very close to the gymnasium. And then we are bringing our kids out to them, and local law enforcement continues to be on site and continues to be monitoring the situation and ensuring that our reunification process is safe.
When did this threat come in? Like what time?
So the call came in at 9:26, I believe.
The call came in earlier this morning. The call was put through to our high school principal, who was in a meeting at that time, and it was around 9:23 that he listened to the message, and then immediately contacted our school liaison, was on site at the time, immediately contacted our school liaison, who then immediately contacted law enforcement, both the Sheriff's Department and Kewaunee Police Department, and they immediately came in to support us and assist us. At that time, we, at the 10:30 time, right around there is when we went into lockdown then to keep our staff and students safe.
And you guys have been in school doing school in person for a long time, right?
We have been in and out, but we are back to, actually this week, we're back to all of our K-5 students are in school again. And the only students that were not in today were our senior class and a B group. We had a cohort model going on. So yes, most of our students were in session today.
I assume they weren't moving around that much then in the first place in kind of that model.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And they did all, once we went into our lockdown, all students stayed in their classrooms. We did move some students into the inner classroom, and then we started taking them, of course, they needed bathroom breaks and things like that. But that was all within the inner parts of the school, nothing outside of the school.
So now you're doing an early release.
We did do an early release, correct. So our buses came, we loaded kids on buses at 1 o'clock, and then now our parents are coming to pick up their students.
The plan for tomorrow at this point, or?
Pardon?
I was gonna say the plan for tomorrow for the school as far as?
We'll have a discussion with local law enforcement After our students are all out of the facility safely, we'll have our staff also leave, and then we will talk about our recovery from this. So ensuring that we have counselors in place for our students and our staff, and we'll be talking with them, and we'll make decisions later today as far as what we should do next, as far as school tomorrow.
For peace of mind of the public, has the school been swept with dogs or anything to make sure there was nothing that was there in school?
Law enforcement will be going through the school, correct?
Okay. And that's after everybody's out then?
Yes.
I guess what's the next steps for law enforcement? If this was a phone call, how do you investigate that?
So we're working, teaming with the Kewaunee Sheriff's Department, and yes, we'll continue to investigate. So
Any indication that this is somebody in the area?
I cannot comment on that.
I know you gotta take every threat serious, but was there any indication that this was a prank gone wrong, or?
You wanna speak to that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one of the precautions that we did take, and which is one of the reasons as far as broadening this beyond just the Kewaunee School District, is that unfortunately there have been instances in the past nationwide where people do what's called, where they basically make a threat towards one facility, but use that as a distraction to the other. So again, I think that, kudos to all of law enforcement, to school districts, where we definitely err to the side of caution, because although this was directed towards one facility, again, we don't know. We don't know if that was possibly something that could have been a distraction to an actual event somewhere else. So, we unfortunately have to learn from all these terrible tragedies throughout our nation and, respond in such a manner. So again, hats off to everyone for really going above and beyond and responding at a higher level of precaution. And as was stated, we're working together. At this point in time, the children are not, in danger. The community is not in danger, and we're going to use our law enforcement resources to arrive at the individual who did this, and then take what needs to happen, whether that be charges, whatever that's going to result in, and we'll have more in follow-up. So right now, this is all very preliminary, but we are tracking down and chasing down any leads that we may get as far as any information that may be suspicious. And that's the stuff that we're going to then share with the school to allow them to make a decision as to whether they come back into session and if that threat has been, identified and taken care of.
Speaking of follow-ups, are there gonna be more officer presence over the next coming week if you guys do go back to school?
So we'll talk it over with the superintendent, and we'll make some determinations on what's best for the school.
Are you asking for the community to, if they have know of anything or hear of anything, as far as, again, to
Definitely.
turn that information on?
Problem. So yes, any information will be welcomed.
And I think it's also important to mention that as students, if they see any information, unfortunately, young people, the things that they may feel, frustrations, whatever it is, it's not appropriate to respond or to communicate in a violent manner, in an abusive manner, because this is the response. This is how we're going to respond. And I think we're very proud of how local law enforcement, the school districts responded. And that's what, I think is an important message to the students, that when they do see or hear something, like they always say something. Make sure that we're sharing this information early. But again, if they're in a situation where they're feeling frustrated, a proper response is necessary. Because if it's improper, and especially if it's violent, this is the response that's going to happen. We're very proud of it, and I think the school and the police department, they're doing an excellent job in how we're handling this response.
Are you planning an update tomorrow or anything scheduled at this point?
Once we get more information, I'll send out a press release.
So this is a violent, can you kind of describe the nature of the call? Was it a violent call? Were they threatening to come and shoot people? Can you give a little bit more information on that?
Well, I think to what you saw from the school district, it did involve a weapon. So it's sort of your question about sweeping the building. It did involve, let's say, a bomb. It was specific to a weapon, so that changes our response and how we're going to deal with it. So that's about as far as we can go, is that it involves this, you know, this unfortunately reoccurring theme of bringing a weapon to school. And of course, we all know that that's a no-go. It's not gonna be tolerated, and this is the response that's gonna happen, even if it's just a threat of bringing a weapon to school.
Right, so as a school district, you know, we have to take any threat of violence seriously. We have to, because it's the safety of our kids, it's the safety of our staff. And that is, you know, the decisions we make are all about keeping our staff and students safe. So, and again, I would also like to thank law enforcement for their immediate response. They were immediately there and helping and supporting us. So I'd like to thank them for everything they did to ensure that our students and our staff were safe through all of this unfortunate event.
Was this isolated to the high school then?
It did not say, it didn't state that it was just the high school. The call came into the high school office though.
And you have I'm just not familiar with the school district as well, but how many buildings do you have in the school district?
So we are all connected. So we have one facility that has our pre-K through 12 in, and then another site that's across the street, but that's just our Ag Learning Center across the street. Not just, but that's our Ag Learning Center. But otherwise, we are one facility that is connected.
How many students are in the school district approximately?
We have about 940 students in our district.
What other school districts were notified then of this?
Yes, so we notified all of the districts, including Oklahoma and Luxembourg Casco, as well as parochial schools, again, just to be precautionary. So although, again, there was not a general threat that may have been directed at them, our concern, again, is that whole idea of distraction and possibly trying to defrag it over to another facility. So, and again, we work as a community. We're not isolated. It's a small community, countywide, and when something affects one area, it affects us all.
I think that's all my questions.
Yeah, I'm good.
We're good?
Okay, thank you very much, guys. I also want to thank the street department. They're gave them 10 minutes notice to bring cones in, and they came with all their troops and helped out the whole process of the